Hey everyone and welcome. Today we are diving deep into a process that so many people experience, but a lot of us don't fully understand it. The menstrual cycle. And let me tell you, it is so much more than just a period. It's really a story of hormones, incredible timing, and this amazing coordination that's happening inside the body every single month.
Okay, so let's get the official definition out of the way. When we talk about the menstrual cycle, what we're usually talking about is this: a cyclic uterine bleeding caused by the shedding of the uterine lining, also known as the endometrium. But honestly, that's kind of like reading the last page of a book first. It tells you what happens at the end, but you miss the entire story.
Exactly. Because here's the thing, that bleeding, what we all call a period, that's not the story itself. It's just the final scene. It's the grand finale of this super complex, beautifully orchestrated biological performance that's been going on for the whole month leading up to it.
So, if that's the end, where does the story actually begin? Now, you'd probably guess it all starts in the ovaries, right? Makes sense. But the true starting point is actually somewhere else entirely. The command to kick the whole thing off comes from the body's master controller. Yep, it all starts right up in the brain with something called the hypothalamic pituitary axis. Just think of these two little structures as the directors of this whole monthly play. They're the ones sending out the very first signals that get the entire production rolling.
So here's how the chain of command works. About every hour to an hour and a half, the hypothalamus sends out this little pulse of a hormone called GnRH. This pulse is basically a direct order to the pituitary gland. And the pituitary responds by releasing two absolutely crucial hormones into your bloodstream. FSH, that's follicle-stimulating hormone, and LH, which is luteinizing hormone. This simple little chain reaction, that's the spark that ignites the entire cycle.
Okay, so once those hormones hit the bloodstream, Act 1 of our story officially begins. And what's so fascinating here is that two major plot lines start unfolding at the exact same time, just in two different locations in the body.
You gotta picture it like a split screen in a movie. On one side, in the ovaries, we've got what's called the follicular phase. That FSH we just talked about, it gets to work, telling a whole group of follicles to start growing. Eventually, one of them becomes the star, the dominant one, and it starts pumping out the hormone estrogen. Now, at the same time, on the other side of the screen, in the uterus, we have the proliferative phase. That rising estrogen that's coming from the ovaries, well, that's the signal for the uterine lining to start rebuilding and getting thicker after the last period.
So, if there's one thing to remember about this first act, it's this. Estrogen is running the whole show. It's this multitasking marvel, directing the action in the ovaries and the uterus all at once. Pretty amazing.
And all of this happens on a really precise schedule. The uterine lining starts its rebuild around day 6, but the real turning point, the critical moment, comes around day 12, when those estrogen levels hit their absolute peak. This peak is the trigger. It sends a powerful message back to the brain, which then causes a massive surge of that other hormone, LH, about 24 hours later. And this perfectly timed hormonal domino effect, it brings us to the climax of the first half of the cycle. This is the single most pivotal moment of the entire story. Ovulation.
Right around the middle of the cycle, usually day 14 for most people, everything that has been building up finally comes to a head. The whole story is about to take a very sharp turn.
And it all comes down to this critical window, 24 hours. That's roughly how much time passes between that massive LH peak we just talked about and the main event it's about to set off.
And there it is, the bottom line. That huge surge of luteinizing hormone is the final go-ahead. It tells that mature follicle in the ovary to rupture and release its egg. And that right there is ovulation.
So the egg is released, the curtain rises on Act 2, and now the entire focus of the body shifts. It's no longer about preparing and releasing an egg, it's all about creating a stable, welcoming home for a potential pregnancy.
And we have some new key players on the stage for this act. That follicle that released the egg, it transforms into something new called the corpus luteum. And its new job is to produce the dominant hormone of the second half, progesterone. Progesterone's main goal is to make that uterine lining thick, stable, and ready for an egg to implant. Estrogen is still around, but it's more of a supporting actor now.
Over in the uterus, we call this the secretory phase. The uterine lining swells up to its maximum thickness, about 6 to 8 millimeters. The glands get full of all these nutrient-rich secretions, and blood flow increases like crazy. The whole goal is simple: to create this lush, nourishing nest, just waiting for a fertilized egg.
So this perfectly prepared stage brings us to the final part of our story, the fork in the road. The cycle has hit this crucial decision point, and from here, it can go down one of two very, very different paths.
The body now has to answer one single fundamental question. Has fertilization happened? Is there a pregnancy? And the answer to that question determines everything that happens next. All right, let's look at path 1. No pregnancy. That corpus luteum, our little hormone factory, it only has a limited lifespan, about 2 weeks. So if it doesn't get a signal that a pregnancy has started, it just begins to break down. This causes the levels of progesterone and estrogen to totally plummet. And without those hormones holding it up, the uterine lining starts to break down too. And the result? Menstruation begins, and the whole cycle starts all over again.
But on path 2, if pregnancy does happen, the little developing embryo sends out a rescue signal. This signal tells the corpus luteum, hey, stick around. So it does, and it keeps pumping out that crucial progesterone and estrogen. These high hormone levels keep the uterine lining intact, which prevents a period and basically puts the whole monthly cycle on pause to support the new pregnancy.
So, if you want to put it really simply, the menstrual cycle is a story that, at the very end, either hits the reset button to start all over again, or it hits pause to begin the brand new story of pregnancy.
So before we wrap this up, let's just go over some quick stats, the cycle's vitals. A normal period can last anywhere from 2 to 7 days. And while we always hear 28 days, a typical cycle length can actually be 28 days, give or take a full week. The amount of blood is usually between 20 and 80 milliliters, and here's a cool fact for you. Menstrual blood doesn't clot, and that's because it's full of special enzymes that prevent that from happening.
And that is the menstrual cycle in a nutshell. It's this complex, perfectly coordinated hormonal dance that prepares for the possibility of new life, month after month. It's a monthly blueprint for life, which really makes you stop and wonder, right? What other incredible stories are our bodies telling us, if we just take a moment to listen? Thanks for joining me.